Hello again, traders, and welcome out. This is Ankit from Maverick Currencies, and this is a quick video on the Canadian dollar outlook. As we have seen the Canadian dollar being outperforming the major counterparts, and especially against the dollar, the CAD has been actually really holding it well. So today is actually a bit of a change where we're seeing the CAD actually weakens, especially against the US dollar. So here we are looking at the dollar CAD. We actually have a breakout finally above that 130.60 level, which has been a crucial level as you can go back in time and see multiple times this level has been tested. The difference is that back in May, we saw a big correction from 130 down to 125, but now here we are. Back in June, we saw a very small correction, and then in July, even a smaller correction. So here we are, nice breakout here. And the CAD actually is a bit of a, this is a movement that's coming right after the Canadian Bank Canada actually decided to raise rates by 100 basis points, which is a full percentage. Again, they're the first one to raise rates by that extreme. And even in Canadian history, we have to go back, decades back to see when the last time they did that. So of course, the central banks are very much focused on fighting inflation. The inflation figures are what really driving a lot of the fear in the markets, and the central banks are responding to it. Now, the Canadian dollar, as you can see that after the rate hike, has actually pulling back a little bit. I mean, if you take a look at the yesterday's move, yeah, we did actually go up on the news here, but then here we are actually making a reversal. So the question is that are we hitting a point where the Canadian dollar is actually about to make a change? Because if you take a look at the correlations, and the biggest correlation we can take a look at is the crude oil. Now, we know that the crude oil actually has a nice correlation with the equity, with the Canadian dollar, and as the crude oil pulls back, this will have an impact on the crude oil and the exchange rate for the Canadian dollar. So now taking a look at the oil. Oil actually has pulled back quite dramatically. I mean, if you look back in time, we were sitting at oil, we were sitting at these oil at these levels that we haven't seen for the longest time. But now we are taking a look at the USO. I mean, let's take a look at the crude oil. As you can see, that actually pulled back quite aggressively. So if you think that the Canadian dollar was really performing well on the back of this performance, the outperformance in the oil markets, I mean, that's kind of pulled back as well. And now, even though we got a Canadian dollar, we got a rate hike from Bank of Canada, that did not result into the Canadian dollar to go higher. And that could be the reason where a lot of this is already priced in. I mean, take a look at the CAD from March until now. And just looking at March lows to where we are right now, I mean, that's a 9% move higher. I mean, these are dramatic moves. There have been years where we haven't really gotten this kind of movement in just a short period of time. Now, I know we looked at dollar CAD, which is an important pair to be looked at right now, because this is the last one to really join that breakout. I mean, if you just take a look at currency pairs like Aussie dollar, I mean, dollar crosses has been on a breakout across the board. I mean, we saw the Aussie dollar actually broke out. We saw euro dollar actually broke lower. We have seen dollar yen that has been kind of on a tear. So this is the last one to join that kind of category. Now, even if you take a look at CAD, I mean, let's pair CAD against other currencies like Australian dollar. We can see, there's been a massive outperformance from Canadian dollar, and it's just not a U.S. story. I mean, we are seeing the CAD to do well across the board. Kiwi CAD, I mean, same thing, has been actually outperforming a lot of the other currencies. So are we about to see a change? I mean, this is where we have to take a look at candlesticks and see if there is a reversal in that movement. So the movement today, I mean, we can see the CAD is actually weak across the board, and currencies even like Kiwi CAD or even Aussie CAD, they're up actually very nicely here. So we really have to pay attention to the Canadian dollar and look at the behavior. In the past, we have seen these pullbacks. I mean, if you go back in time, we saw the last pullback we saw like this was back in June 15 and 16. So let's go on a 4-hour chart and see how the price action was. You can see initially we did break lower, but then there was no follow through. And in the next upcoming weeks, we just saw a full recovery. Now, the question is that something we need to watch out here? Or is this a bit of a regime change? So at this point, I mean, right now, CAD looks weak to me. I think CAD has further downside based on the price action. We take a look at the moving averages. I mean, we are kind of giving up the 20, the 50, the moving average here. So I actually like a further little bit downside on the CAD. Now, what do you want to pair it with? We looked at dollar CAD, even though we're getting a bit of a reversal. I mean, this is a perfect breakout. I mean, we can, a typical price action could be where it breaks out, retest, and then runs again. So we still like the dollar CAD to the upside, but at the same time, I mean, if dollar is not really in play, we can take a look at CAD against a lot of the other currencies. Like I said, Aussie CAD on a 4-hour chart is actually moving nicely up. I think we can see that the last time it was above these moving averages were actually a few weeks back here. If this is a reversal, I think Aussie CAD could be one that's making that could make a reversal. I mean, Kiwi CAD. I mean, there are certain currencies that actually stop going down as a whole. I mean, Kiwi is the one that's been kind of going sideways for the most part, and even against the CAD, it hasn't really moved much in the past for the most part of July here. So we now finally getting above the moving average, above the 20 to 50 moving average, getting a reversal sign here. So I think the CAD could be pulling back in the near term. Then if that stays below it, I mean, if we get a bit of a pivot low, to get a bit of rally or even a base, remember the follow through is where the biggest move is going to be. And just like what we saw back here, this one did not result into a follow through. So what we need is a follow through. We don't want to see a full recovery back the way it did back, back all this back couple of movement that we've seen on the downside. Each time there was no follow through. So these two back-to-back candles, and in this case, there were 3 back-to-back candles. In this case, now we actually have 1, 2, and 3 on a 4-hour chart. So this is where it could be just going sideways for a bit. But we need to see is if there's a break below it. And if that's the case, I think dollar CAD has a decent chance to run, especially as we are in this upper end of the range. I think 133.50 or 134 is a level where that we can aim for. But like I said, outside of that, we can take a look at other 2 currencies as well. We're certainly in a period where you have to be clear on what you want to buy and what you want to sell and why you're doing so. And again, Aussie and Kiwis, you can see on a day like today, they're actually okay. They're positive. So despite the dollar strength, Aussie and Kiwi, they're actually positive overall. So the biggest movement has been really in the Canadian dollar cross and even the dollar or the dollar CAD pairing it together because we got that breakout there. So the takeaway is I like the dollar CAD to the upside. If the dollar is no longer moving on the upside, then we can take a look at Aussie CAD and Kiwi CAD as 2 other currencies that we like on the downside, onto the reversal here, looking for further gains there. So that's the outlook here, and we'll be back with another update once we get a little bit more confirmation from the Canadian dollar. Thanks everyone for watching.